ABC News top stories. Zelensky describes Russian intelligence sharing with Iran. Zelensky disclosed that Russia has been covertly sharing intelligence with Iran, including details about Ukraine's missile strikes. He highlighted the importance of preventing further escalation of conflict between Russia and Iran. The report revealed that Iran is aware of Russia's nuclear capabilities. Zelensky also discussed the role of the United States in preventing escalation of conflict. Zelensky underscored the significance of addressing the situation to avoid further escalation.
NBC News top stories. Looking to limit birthright citizenship, Trump turns to an 1884 ruling against a Native American. President Trump's administration cites an 1884 Supreme Court ruling to defend its birthright citizenship plan. The case was about a Native American, John Elk, denied voting rights because he was Native American. The court ruled Native Americans born in the U.S. didn't have citizenship, a decision now challenged by the ACLU. Native American law experts say this ruling is outdated and doesn't apply to denying citizenship to children of undocumented immigrants. ABC News top stories. Iran live updates. IDF launches widespread strikes in Tehran. President Donald Trump announced major combat operations against Iran on February 28, with massive joint U.S.-Israeli strikes targeting military and government sites in Tehran. Iran has responded with missile and drone attacks targeting Israel, regional U.S. bases, and multiple Gulf nations. Israel is intensifying its strike campaign against the Iran-backed Hezbollah militia in Lebanon and expanding its ground operations in the south of the country. Iran is attempting to block some shipping traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. Home, CBSNews.com. 48 Hours show schedule. A new episode of 48 Hours will air this Saturday, November 22, 2025. At 10:39:30 CE, Aaron Moriarty will cover a gripping case involving a female crime scene investigator who was shot at point-blank range. Vox. Even John Bolton is against this Iran war. John Bolton, who has long supported regime change in Iran, is now criticizing the Trump administration for its handling of the Iran war. Bolton argues that Iran's current leadership is unlikely to change its approach to nuclear weapons and terrorism, suggesting that the conditions are favorable for regime change. He criticizes Trump for not adequately preparing the American public, Congress, and international allies for the war, and for failing to coordinate with opposition groups within Iran. Bolton believes that a complete regime change might take longer than expected.
Newsweek, Aging Boomers Will Jam ERs. Why It's About to Get Worse. Opinion. The aging baby boomer generation is poised to place a significant strain on healthcare systems, particularly as the number of individuals aged 85 and older is expected to surge over the next decade. This demographic shift is often referred to as a demographic bubble, which is projected to lead to increased demand for medical facilities and skilled nursing care.
NPR Topics, Home Page Top Stories. Opinion. White House gamifying Iran war updates. White House posts videos mixing real missile strikes with game clips. Critics say this trivializes war. Videos claim to showcase U.S. military success. Critics warn of desensitization.
U.S. News. Russia's Ust-Luga port damaged by Ukrainian drones. Fire breaks out. Russia's Ust-Luga port experienced damage from a Ukrainian drone strike, causing a fire. The port is a critical hub for petroleum exports, processing around 700,000 barrels daily and shipping 32.9 million metric tons of oil products in 2025. Ukraine has targeted Russian oil facilities, aiming to weaken Moscow's war economy. NPR Topics. World. Yemen's Houthi rebels enter the fighting in the Middle East. At least 15 U.S. military personnel were wounded in an Iranian attack on an airbase in Saudi Arabia. Iran launched 6 missiles and over 24 drones at the base. The Houthi rebels have now joined the fighting in the Middle East, launching ballistic missiles at sensitive Israeli military sites in southern Israel. NPR Topics. National. Some critics of birthright citizenship say it's a fraud issue. What does that mean? Critics of birthright citizenship claim it's a fraud issue, citing birth tourism, where foreigners travel to the U.S. to give birth so their children can obtain American citizenship. This practice is alleged to be exploited by businesses that charge for such services. The U.S. Supreme Court is set to hear arguments on whether President Trump's executive order, which aims to limit citizenship to children born to parents in the U.S. illegally or temporarily, upholds constitutional principles. Critics argue that existing immigration laws could address fraud without altering birthright citizenship. The scale of the issue remains uncertain, with estimates of births involving non-U.S. addresses in 2024 being around 9,500.
BBC News. Schools do not have enough staff to make SEND reforms work, union warns. England's largest teaching union, the National Education Union, NEU, says schools lack sufficient staff to implement SEND reforms. The union claims the current funding is inadequate, equating to part-time teaching assistants for primary schools and 2 for secondary schools. EU's survey revealed that 86% of teachers consider insufficient staff a barrier to inclusion, with 73% citing workload as a concern. BBC News. 3 Lebanese journalists killed in Israeli strike, say broadcasters. 3 Lebanese journalists were killed in an Israeli strike on Saturday. The victims were Ali Shoaib, a reporter for Al-Manar TV affiliated with Hezbollah, Fatima Tawni and Mohammed Tawni, both from Al Mayadeen. The strike reportedly hit their car. The Israel Defense Forces, IDF, confirmed it had killed Shoaib, describing him as a terrorist from Iran-backed Hezbollah's elite Radwan force. The IDF did not provide evidence to support its claim that Shoaib had a military role. It did not comment on the deaths of Fatima or Mohammed Tawni. Hezbollah denounced the strike as the deliberate criminal targeting of journalists.
WSJ.com, World News, Voices of War. 5 lives caught in the Middle East conflict. The Middle East conflict extends beyond its borders, affecting over a dozen nations as the war disrupts lives and impacts global economies. Officials are exploring diplomatic solutions to ease Iran's control over the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial global fuel route. Currently, renewed fighting between Israel and Hezbollah militants in Lebanon poses the threat of prolonged conflict.
PBS News Har. The latest. Iranian attack on Saudi base injures U.S. troops as more American forces arrive in the Middle East. The Iran-Saudi conflict has expanded to include the U.S., with more than 300 American service members injured in recent attacks on a Saudi airbase.
The Atlantic. Mutually assured energy destruction. Mutually assured energy destruction is the strategic concept that total oil infrastructure destruction in a nation would lead to its own oil production's inevitable collapse, making the attack economically suicidal.
Time. Yemen's Houthis have entered the Iran war. What you need to know. The Houthis, allied with Iran, have launched missile attacks on southern Israel, marking their involvement in the Iran conflict. These attacks, supplied with missile technology by Iran, target sensitive Israeli military sites. The Houthis, who control much of northern Yemen, have resisted past airstrikes by the US and Saudi Arabia. Recent US-Iran indirect negotiations suggest the war may end soon, though limited Houthi strikes could influence this timeline.
NN.com, RSS channel, HP Hero. ADHD medication abuse in schools is a wake-up call. A recent study revealed that over 25% of middle and high school students in the United States are misusing prescription stimulants meant to treat ADHD. This includes taking excessive doses or combining medications with alcohol and other drugs. A study conducted by researchers at the University of Michigan is the first national examination of non-medical use of these stimulants among students. Findings highlight that misuse and sharing of stimulant prescription medications are prevalent in middle and high schools, not just colleges. The study analyzed data from Monitoring the Future, a federal survey tracking drug and alcohol use among secondary school students since 1975. It involved questionnaires distributed to over 230,000 teens across 3,284 secondary schools. Schools with higher ADHD medication misuse rates had about 36% more students misusing these medications compared to those with lower rates. NN.com, RSS channel US. Prepared to block vote to replace Feinstein and Senate Judiciary. Senators have blocked a Democratic effort to temporarily replace Sen. Dianne Feinstein on the Senate Judiciary Committee while she recovers from shingles. top stories. Its slum in Gangnam, the richest part of Seoul. Gangnam district in Seoul is home to Guryong village, a shantytown where hundreds are defying eviction as the city seeks to redevelop the area. The village, a 71-acre unauthorized settlement surrounded by some of the country's richest people, symbolizes the economic gap in Seoul and the struggle the poor face to own a home.
NBC News top stories. Ukraine battles a brutal Russian offensive as Iran war takes the world's focus. Russia is intensifying its spring offensive in Ukraine, despite ongoing peace talks that have lost momentum. Ukraine's forces continue to defend their territory as President Trump navigates another conflict in Iran. Russia claims to be regaining ground in Ukraine, despite a high casualty rate. Ukraine's resistance shows no signs of weakening as the conflict drags on. Amid the war, U.S. President Trump continues to push Ukraine for peace talks with Russia. The situation is complicated by Iran's involvement affecting diplomatic efforts. Ukrainian officials expressed doubts about diplomacy, citing Russia's continued aggression and reliance on Iran. Ukraine remains focused on supporting its allies and preventing further escalation from Iran and Russia.
ABC News top stories. Why you should book summer travel now. Travel expert Clint Henderson shares tips for getting through TSA lines and booking summer travel. He advises booking early, especially for popular destinations like Hawaii, Florida, and the Caribbean. Henderson also mentions the importance of checking airline websites for deals and being flexible with travel dates to find better prices. Home, CBSNews.com. Attack survivors, not believed by police, get the last word against kidnapper. In 2015, Aaron and Denise Quinn were terrorized by an assailant nicknamed The Voice, who abducted Denise and subjected her to rape. Despite their efforts to help law enforcement, the Quinns were met with skepticism and misdirection by police, who initially believed Aaron's account was false. After a tense ordeal involving ransom demands and the Quinns being believed to have fabricated their kidnapping, Denise was rescued by a neighbor. The ordeal had a lasting impact on both the Quinns and the community, highlighting issues of victim belief and police procedural challenges in similar cases. After a home invasion and kidnapping in 2015, Denise Huskins and Aaron Quinn faced challenges in getting the police to believe them, but their ordeal led to significant developments. A follow-up attack resulted in an arrest, and evidence, including a stolen car's GPS data, linked the kidnapper to the crime. Despite the arrest and plea deal that secured 40 years for Matthew Mueller, the couple faced ongoing mistrust and a civil lawsuit settlement. They later authored a book and participated in a Netflix series, while Chief Nick Borges reached out to apologize and seek answers from Mueller, who ultimately confessed to acting alone. Matthew Mueller, a serial offender, confessed to multiple crimes during a 2024 interview with DA Vern Pearson and an FBI interviewer. Mueller's confessions included voyeurism, home invasions, and assaults, some of which were previously unreported. Pearson's strategy of non-judgmental interviewing allowed Mueller to divulge more information, leading to successful cases previously unsolved, such as a ladder found at the scene of a home invasion and a matching report of a 1993 attack on a young couple. Lynn, a victim of a 1993 assault, felt her fears and trauma were dismissed by authorities. She found relief and closure when her attacker was caught and sentenced. Denise and Aaron Quinn, also victims of Mueller's crimes, believed he was responsible for other assaults. In 2025, Mueller was charged with attempted rapes and attacks in Santa Clara and Contra Costa counties. He met with Denise and Aaron in 2025, but his motives remained unclear. Mueller was sentenced to 30 years in prison, and his attacker was sentenced to 16 years in prison. In June 2025, Matthew Mueller was charged with Lynn's attack and sentenced to 4 life terms for additional crimes uncovered by Denise and Aaron. After confronting Mueller through interviews, Denise and Aaron expressed that this act of reckoning was validating. They both hope their case will change how law enforcement interviews victims and suspects. They continue to speak to law enforcement about improving the interview process.
Politics, policy, political news top stories. He's lied about everything. Iran war puts Trump on shaky ground with young MAGA men. Iran war is straining Trump's support among young MAGA men. Pat highlighted generational discord over interventionist policies. MAGA loyalists criticized Trump's approach, frustrated by the lack of a clear endgame. Tensions are evident at CP-PAC, with mixed loyalties among attendees. Older MAGA men are more trusting of Trump's strategy compared to younger supporters. Influential figures like Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan are opposing the war. This generational split poses a challenge for Republicans ahead of midterm elections. Maintaining support from young voters is crucial for electoral success. Intercept. A dream survives, Trump has to deal, and Iranians are the biggest losers. Iran's prolonged conflict has escalated, causing casualties and disrupting the global economy. The US and Israel underestimated strong Iranian resistance, leading to fatalities on multiple sides. Oil and gas production has been hit, causing market instability, and grapples with tough decisions as Iran uses economic leverage. The situation is volatile, with hardliners gaining power, impacting both the US and Iran.
The contradiction at the heart of OpenAI. OpenAI's recent changes show a shift away from its nonprofit roots, focusing more on profit. Critics worry this could mean prioritizing investors over ethical AI development. The nonprofit arm's role in guiding the for-profit side is under scrutiny.
News Newsweek, heavy snow warning as up to 15 inches to hit hazardous. A heavy snow warning is in effect for parts of Alaska and Montana. According to the National Weather Service, hazardous conditions are expected, particularly in mountainous and coastal areas. NPR Topics, Homepage Top Stories. There's a massive measles vaccine campaign in Mexico. Is the public on board? Mexico is launching a massive measles vaccination campaign targeting 2.5 million people weekly to curb a nationwide outbreak. Innovative strategies such as QR code posters and door-to-door outreach are being used, but the campaign faces criticism for uneven targeting and logistical challenges.
U.S. News. News. Disney opens World of Frozen at renamed Paris Park in €2 billion expansion. Disney's Euro Disney in Paris is set to undergo a $2 billion expansion, transforming it into Disney Adventure World. NPR Topics. World. The iconic South African theater that took on apartheid. The Market Theater in Johannesburg has been a beacon of creativity and resistance, playing a pivotal role in the fight against apartheid. Opened in 1976, the theater defied racial segregation laws by bringing together Black and white audiences, challenging the apartheid government's censorship efforts, and producing internationally acclaimed works such as Sophia Town, Sees Me Banzi is Dead, and the Broadway and film hit Serafina. It continues to evolve, addressing contemporary issues like education, corruption, and gender-based violence, ensuring its legacy as a vital cultural institution.
NPR Topics. National. Photos. No Kings protests across the country. Protests against President Trump's administration have been held across the United States. Organized by the No Kings group, these demonstrations include progressive organizations opposing the administration's policies.
ABC News urged Peters to leave Champions Hull KR. Lee Peters, the head coach of the reigning Super League champions Hull KR, will leave the club at the end of the season to become the inaugural head coach of the National Rugby League's newest team, the Papua New Guinea Chiefs. Peters, 47, has a contract at Craven Park until 2028. The Chiefs will not join the NRL until the 2028 season, but Peters will spend next year leading recruitment for the competition's newest team, who will be based in PNG's capital, Port Moresby.
BBC News. No Kings protesters across the U.S. rally against Donald Trump. Protests against Donald Trump's administration have erupted nationwide, marking the third iteration of No Kings rallies. Organizers claim the demonstrations target policies like the war in Iran, federal immigration enforcement, and rising living costs. A White House spokesperson dismissed the protests as Trump derangement therapy sessions, criticizing reporters covering them. Crowds gathered in major cities, including New York, Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles, with events also occurring in smaller towns. USJ.com. World News. How Pakistan wooed Trump and styled itself as a peace broker in Iran conflict. Pakistan's strategic diplomacy under Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Army Chief Asim Munir has positioned it as a key broker in the Iran-US conflict. Pakistan facilitated a peace proposal delivered via a back channel, showcasing its role in peace talks. This shift marks a departure from past perceptions, as Trump's administration reevaluates Pakistan's contributions post-Osama bin Laden era.
CBS News Har. The latest. No Kings rallies draw crowds across US and Europe as Springsteen headlines Minnesota demonstration. Thousands of people took to the streets in Minnesota and across the US and Europe for No Kings rallies against President Donald Trump's immigration policies and the war in Iran. Bruce Springsteen headlined the Minnesota event, performing songs like Streets of Minneapolis and speaking about the state's pushback against ICE.
The Atlantic. The Bill Maher Effect. For 13 months, President Trump has been the central figure at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, influencing performances and shaping the art scene in Washington, D.C. His influence extends beyond his name on the building, prompting some acts to reconsider their engagements with this prominent arts venue. Time. No Kings protesters take to streets in towns and cities across the U.S. Millions of Americans took to the streets across the United States for the No Kings protests, organized by a coalition of activist groups. The demonstrations, which included more than 3,000 events nationwide, called for accountability from the government and opposition to President Donald Trump's policies. The protests, which spanned from New York to California and included rallies in St. Paul, Minnesota, and Times Square, New York, were characterized by diverse grievances, including opposition to the war in Iran, immigration enforcement, proposed changes to voting laws, environmental rollbacks, and what some protesters viewed as erosion of CNN.com, RSS, channel, HP Hero. Fulton County DA says fake Trump electors are incriminating one another and wants lawyer disqualified. The Fulton County DA is investigating alleged criminal activities among fake electors for Donald Trump, seeking to disqualify their lawyer, Kimberly Burrows DeBrow. The DA accuses DeBrow of failing to disclose immunity deals to her clients, who are implicated in potentially violating Georgia law. Interviews with some electors have revealed conflicting statements, indicating possible conflicts of interest for DeBrow. No charges have been filed yet, but individuals like former Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani have been informed they might be potential targets of this probe. ENN.com, RSS channel, World. Look of the week. Blackpink headline Coachella in Korean handboks. Blackpink made history at Coachella 2023 as the first Asian act to headline the festival. On the second day of the festival, Jennie, Jisoo, Lisa, and Rosé donned hanboks, a traditional Korean dress, to celebrate their heritage and cultural significance. CNN.com, RSS channel, US. Supreme Court seems sympathetic to postal worker who didn't work Sundays in dispute over religious accommodations. The Supreme Court is weighing in on a case involving Gerald Groff, a former mail carrier. He requested not to work Sundays due to his Christian religious beliefs. A lower court sided against Groff, arguing his request would place an undue burden on the USPS and harm employee morale.
Top stories. I saw something new in San Francisco. Francisco's tech scene is buzzing with AI developments. Tech leaders are racing to integrate AI into everyday life and business operations. OpenClaw, an AI system, operates locally, accessing user data to tailor responses. This integration is seen as a key advantage for early adopters. While cybersecurity is a concern, the value to users increases with more shared digital lives.
ABC News. Top stories. No Kings protests draw large crowds in cities, towns across U.S. On Saturday, over 3,000 cities and towns across the country saw protests against President Donald Trump and his policies. Organized by groups like the ACLU and the United Federation of Teachers, the No Kings protests have been a series of demonstrations since October. Home CBSNews.com. Denise and Aaron Quinn get the last word. A couple was attacked in their home while they slept. They worked with law enforcement to get their attacker to confess to other crimes. Politics, policy, political news top stories. The alarm bells are going off. Air travel hits new lows. Air travel in the United States is facing a crisis with delays, security frustrations, and safety concerns. Government gridlock and understaffed air traffic controllers are making matters worse. Equipment issues add to the woes. Despite promises of improvement, travelers are still in trouble. The aviation industry is dealing with staffing shortages, rising ticket prices, and operational costs. While these issues are temporary, long-term problems like aging infrastructure and insufficient air traffic controllers loom. Recent incidents reveal these challenges, but modernization efforts are underway.
Intercept NC resolution to reject AI PAC funding puts Democratic leaders in the hot seat. Democratic leaders are facing criticism for a symbolic resolution rejecting AI PAC's funding in Democratic primaries. AIPAC, a major lobbying group, has spent tens of millions on Democratic races, influencing candidates who oppose Palestinian rights.
Vox. Courts are finally punishing big tech for harming kids. Here's the catch. Courts have ruled against big tech companies, particularly in California and New Mexico, in landmark cases regarding social media platforms and their impact on minors. In Los Angeles, a jury awarded $6 million to a young woman who claimed Instagram and YouTube negatively affected her mental health. In Santa Fe, a jury ordered Meta to pay $375 million for allegedly designing its platforms in a way that harmed minors. These decisions are seen as a victory for child online safety advocates, but also raise concerns among free speech advocates about potential infringements on online freedom and
Newsweek. As Harry and Meghan's flop era has outlasted their success era, as Harry and Meghan Markle faced challenges despite initial success, which was supported by strategic media moves and personal achievements. Their post-royal career, marked by notable setbacks such as the collapse of their Spotify deal and lack of commercial success, highlights ongoing difficulties.
NPR Topics, homepage top stories. The comeback is back. That's something